And now, from Star Worldwide Networks, it's time for Don Cromwell Live, an insightful, entertaining look into all aspects of the music industry. You'll never hear music the same way again. Now here's your host, producer, songwriter, musician, and former Air Supply and Eddie Money bassist, Don Cromwell.
Four hands clapping, clapping. Baby. Welcome, everybody, to Don Cromwell Live. So happy to have you here, whether you're listening live right at this very moment across the web or the podcast some future time. I'm here with my dear friend, Danny Forrest.
Hey,
what's up,
everybody.
Danny? And again, thank you. We're heading towards Easter already. It's just
I know. My goodness. April, then what? Christmas.
Yeah, right. Let's just jump straight to Christmas. Why not? I mean, that's how fast they go by. But it's a beautiful day here in Los Angeles. Still a little bit chilly.
Yeah.
It's supposed to kind of warm up. 2 weeks from now, we'll all be complaining about the heat instead of the cold. But it's a beautiful, gorgeous day. And before we go any further, I just want to say I hope everybody's doing well. However you celebrate the holidays, just enjoy with family and friends. That's what it's all about at the end of the day, right?
Yes. Happy Easter, happy Passover, happy however, whatever you celebrate.
Yeah, there's lots of things. And to all the people listening in, tonight I'm taking a left turn from my usual music-oriented subject. And I was thinking, I've been doing this show, as any regular listener would know, for over 10 years now. And I've really only had a few guests who weren't musical guests. Two of them were pro athletes who just wanted to come in and play their favorite music. I had my in-laws on one time and some of my colleagues from business on. And I think that's about it. Maybe 4 shows in 10 years that weren't music-oriented about musicians. But tonight, due to the persistence of a very, very good publicist, Ken Franklin, and just my own fascination with what I think and know this lady will bring on, welcome my special guest tonight's show, Miss Birgitta Visser. Welcome, Birgitta.
Hi, Birgitta.
Hi, Danny and Dawn. Thank you so much for having me.
We are thrilled. Believe me, and I told Danny's a deep thinker, and she's also an author. We'll get into all that in a minute. But Birgitta is a soul empowerment coach. I mean, that says so much. And I must admit, I don't know that much about you and your background. I did a little research, but I really wanted to let the show flow however it flowed. Also, my great producer who brought you on the show, Robin Cote. Robin is the author of a wonderful book called Soul Stirrings. I think it might be a little bit of lady power here tonight.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm all for that. Birgitta, let's just start off, please. By the way, fans listening, Birgitta is calling in from the UK. So she said she had to wake up to do this show, and I really, really appreciate that. Birgitta, just tell my fans and your fans a little bit about your background and how that brought you to where you are now.
So do you want to talk about what I went through? Is that what you're asking?
Well, I'm just saying, because anybody listening, at least my audience, is not going to know your background, but whatever brought you to this point. I mean, to be a soul empowerment coach
There was probably a journey involved.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. There was a journey involved, and it was sometimes taking one step forward and 2 steps back. But when I grew up, because I'm part Dutch, I'm actually Dutch mutt, because I always say I'm a Dutch mutt because I was born in Holland, but I'm a mixture of Indian, Indonesian, Belgian, French, and German.
Wow.
So, yeah. And, my life wasn't a bed of roses. And at the age of 10, I was abused by a friend of the family. So I went through a lot of trauma. And my dad passed away when I was 14. I was bullied at school. I was super skinny because I was a pro at throwing my food away. Everything just accumulated. All the trauma just accumulated. And growing up in the 80s, life was very, very different. You didn't really talk about things. I mean, I didn't even know how to express it. And so I rolled into, when my stepdad died at the age of, this was in 2000, so I was nearly 25, I rolled into drugs. I was assaulted in the modeling industry because I decided to give it a go. Yeah, so and then I rolled into many toxic or dysfunctional relationships because I didn't heal myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so, every bit of trauma creates another bit of trauma. And I just kept lugging it around. And I was walking around like the Hunchback of Notre Dame, Quasimodo, because I didn't heal. And I just kept soldiering on. And my only coping mechanism in place was really that I was working like a maniac. You can put me in the desert anywhere in the world and I will find a job. But that was my attitude, and I've always been like that. Plus, I was starving myself because that was one thing I could control. Mm. And so over many years, I decided that I needed to heal myself, and I rolled into the holistic. Well, I rolled into the holistic through Reiki. I had my life threatened by the Crips in Holland, the Dutch Crips, because an ex of mine was a crack addict. Well, he's doing very, very well now, but this was back in 2009, and I had my life threatened, and because I saved. Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Don.
No, I was just saying, wow, this is fascinating. And I appreciate you sharing whatever you want to share. If there's anything you don't want to share, of course, we understand. But it's starting to, as Danny said, it's a journey, and it sounds like quite a radical journey.
Yes. And you know what? I am very open because I don't have that shame or fear label anymore, like I used to have, by the way, because I was always afraid of hurting other people. But when you're afraid of hurting other people, you only end up hurting yourself. So after that event that happened in Holland, where I saved my ex's life and he got deported back to the U.S., I was in the UK and I went to see a counselor, and the counselor said to me, because I tried to take my own life, I took a whole box of ibuprofen. Well, the only thing that did to me was I had a good night's sleep and the massive headache was gone. And I went, I know, but it was still a whole box.
Yeah,
and
wow.
She said to me, oh, Birgitta, you're strong enough. You're going to be fine. And I was like, seriously? And that wasn't working for me. And so I rolled into Reiki, had to do my research, because I didn't come here with a cheat sheet, so I had to figure it all out. And, that helped me a lot. And I went on to study Reiki and many other healing modalities, including EFT. I became a meditation teacher and studied holistic nutrition as well. And it really helped me in, it was the start of my journey in finding myself. And it didn't stop there. Every time we go through many, many experiences, and it's like peeling back. I always say it's like peeling back an onion layer. Yeah, we go through an experience, we go through trauma, and then we cry about it, and we heal up, and then we go to the next layer until we turn to a more authentic version of ourselves, and we understand the experiences. But, I was a sadomasochist because I always clung to many of the relationships I was in because I felt, I needed to fix them. They were refurbishment projects to me, basically, because when we're with someone, it's like we should accept them the way they are. If it doesn't work for us, then we should move on rather than clinging on and trying to fix something. And, it was me. I needed to fix myself. I was such a broken bird, but I was trying to fix other broken birds. And that's what you attract. And these were the lessons, the experience I needed to go through. And so when I was living out in St. Petersburg, and I was in another dysfunctional relationship where the guy wouldn't leave me alone. He couldn't understand that. He couldn't understand that I didn't love him anymore. And I felt so isolated because he'd moved from an hour away to 2 doors down, bless his heart. And he just kept harassing me. And it was a horrible, horrible feeling. And yet, in a way, I also enabled him, because this is what I always did. I always tried to help them, try and find them jobs whilst I was working my socks off, and I was helping them financially as well, which didn't help didn't help them, and it didn't help me either.
So you sort of got your definition as a savior.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, I was like a demon slayer. I was their savior. I was their hero. But in fact, I wasn't. And, we all need to walk our own journey. And sometimes when we don't do that, we stump their growth, but we also stump our own growth. And so I really had to learn that. And I was so exasperated. I mean, I even sold my home to get away from him. And then I bought another home because I felt like such a failure. I mean, I was riddled with insecurities. And then I got ripped off by the builders there. It was a whole kerfuffle. I learned a lot. And then I was so exasperated. I was so depressed. I mean, I would lie down and just cry. And I said to my guides, I said, I cannot go on like this anymore. I don't want to go on like this anymore. And then I started to listen to the signs. And this is one of the reasons, I rolled into Kambo, which is a shamanic medicine. And from there on, I rolled into channeling through someone who was an Akashic record healer, so she delved into past lives, and it's so powerful. I always say that because we're all energy, and the
now,
moment
did you grow up with any religious background or anything that would have informed kind of your spiritual journey? Anything that you had to sort of overcome as you started to embrace these new ways of thinking?
No, I didn't have a religious background. My dad, however, he passed away in 1988. He was very spiritual. He followed the Rosicrucian teaching, something I had no idea of. And he also loved Ogmandino. And he had this little pocket book called The Greatest Salesman in the World. And he would write these scriptures down for me and my sister. And we were like 12 years old at the time. And he said, you have to read these scriptures. It was like a page every morning in silence and every evening aloud. And my mom was like, "What are you doing to these kids?" Because my mom was not like that. It was not like that at all. I mean, these days she believes in mediumship, and that's where the buck stops, and that's fine. But my dad, he wasn't balanced. So he thought, he died of coronary heart disease, but he didn't take his medication. And he said, he meditated, but he didn't heal himself. And so he was still stuck with that emotional trauma because when he was 15, he went to a seminary and he was abused in the seminary. He was raised Catholic, my mother Protestant, actually. So that was the difference. My dad wasn't balanced. He didn't have one foot in the earthly and one foot in the spiritual. He was totally spiritual. He didn't have time for his family, and that was what bothered my mother.
So would you say that he sort of engaged in what we call kind of spiritual bypass? So he sort of denied the reality of his pain by trying to over-spiritualize things? Yes, he did.
And I always say he just stepped out of this life. Yes, he left a letter stating that my mom threw it out, but years later, but it was really that he couldn't go on anymore. And he just went biking one day and fell off his bike, and they tried to revive him, but he was basically brain dead. So the doctor let him go. And this was back, like I said, in 1988. So it's a long time ago. But it was hard. When you're 14 years old, it's hard. You lose your dad, and it's like, that was the first time I suffered from a headache. And, it was very traumatic. That was very traumatic, losing my dad.
So, Brigitte, I'd like to ask you, and a lot of our listeners, this is a music-based show, but, we're all on our own journeys, and a lot of people have been affected in their lives to a greater or lesser extent by trauma. a lot of adverse childhood experiences, and so many people take those experiences and they go down a path of drug or alcohol abuse, or lives that don't really embrace the fullness of their potential. So I'm sort of wondering what separated you from the many people who aren't able to overcome all of that kind of trauma and loss in life.
I think for me, and everyone's journey is different. I knew that I couldn't. Every time I went through something traumatic, I knew I couldn't go on like that anymore. And as my guides always say, Brigitte, what if you want to take your own life? Then what? And they were right. But I took responsibility for my life because I wanted to get better. And they always say when it comes to our mental well-being, and I work a lot with Archangel Michael as well. He has a sense of humor, but it's really all about, basically what we do. We feed our mind with so much, and we think about so much. Something happens to us, and it's like it eats away. It literally eats away at our mind, and we cause our own anxiety. We cause our own dis-ease.
Yeah.
And I didn't want that for me anymore. So I had to really look at myself and figure out how I could heal myself. And that was really, really important to me because I was feeling so uncomfortable within. I wasn't at ease within my own skin, and I wasn't feeling peachy within my own skin. So for me, it was no option. And yes, we can remain in that victimhood, but what are we going to get out of life? Do we not deserve to live, a better life? Do we not deserve? We're deserving of everything. And we forget that we are essentially love. That is our divine nature.
Yes, I've heard it said many times that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And it's the human experience that gets us bogged down and kind of blinds us to just the beauty and the love that is accessible at all times. I'm wondering, though, with all that bundle of trauma that you experienced, what was it that got you to the point of becoming an author and not just healing yourself, but being a conduit so that you could help heal others?
Yeah, so even my book was a journey because I started writing it in 2000. And I was in New York at that time, but I still had to go through many, many life experiences. So I left it on the back burner till about 2018. I think it was just right around 2018, 2019. And then I think COVID hit, and that was kind of a wake-up call. It's like, what am I doing with my life? It really was a time for me to go deep within. And, I'm working from home. So that makes all the difference. But that was a journey. The book was really, really a journey. And it was a healing process for me as well. And, I'm still learning. And I think, so, yeah. And so now it's really about helping other people, overcome their own trauma.
And you've done that. You've done that through a book, correct? A book called "Becoming Authentically Me."
Yes, correct.
And can you tell us what the message is?
Yes. So it's really about overcoming your own trauma, your own experiences, everything that you've gone through to live a more fulfilled life. So it's in two parts. So the first part is really about the conscious transformation that we find ourselves in. And it seems to be very, very difficult for people. Because I always say that we live very much in an artificial grid of existence. Our souls were not designed to live this way. We try to conform to someone living in this society that we are not. And it's very difficult to be our authentic selves.
It's very funny you say that because you've heard of Krishnamurti, correct? He was sort of a mystic who he was actually based in Ojai here in California. And one of the sayings he said that I love so much was that it's no measure of health to be well adapted to a sick society.
Well, absolutely.
And so what you just said reminded me of that.
You remind me of something else. So, when we are ill, so instead of sick, we're ill. I always say ill means you're imbalanced of love and life, because that's exactly what it is. We make ourselves ill. And so, yes, I talk very much about the transformation and how we need to. This is very much a time of reflection that we're living in. And rather than playing whack-a-mole with our emotions and suppressing these, it's time to let these emotions surface and analyze and reevaluate these and heal ourselves, because it's so important right now. We live in such transformational times, and they're actually beautiful times we live in, because so much is changing, so much is collapsing. And whilst rebirthing is always painful, I mean, let's face it, when a caterpillar becomes a butterfly, it has to go through a painful transformation to get to that, to get to the state of being a butterfly. So, but the second part of my book is very much about my life and how I overcame my trauma. It's infused with exercises, also with exercises of EFT and meditation. And meditation is always something like, yeah, but people think, oh, it's juju, and why should I do this? Well, it takes 20 minutes a day. And I always say to people, if you're new to it, just listen to meditation, 20-minute meditations on YouTube by David G.
Oh, I've listened to him many times during the pandemic. My goodness, I love him. His voice is wonderful, and he's on Spotify, and you can just get like 20-minute meditations on letting go and love and forgiveness, and it really helped me a lot during the pandemic. So I'm so glad that you mentioned him. It's kind of a nice way to tell our listeners simple things that they can do to sort of get themselves in balance, because I think we've all been through a lot of trauma, individual but also collective, with the pandemic, with all the crazy news cycles and the politics. It's a lot for the human mind to have to take in. So I would want, if I had, on the show, it's only an hour, but I would love it if you could tell people maybe 3 simple things they could do every day to sort of get themselves back toward balance and to sort of avoid further imbalance.
Yeah. So, and you're right with David G. I listen to him every morning and every night. I won't say every night, but every morning. And the other thing is, this is not me saying this, this is my guide saying, it's very funny. When you start your day, do not switch on the TV.
Great idea.
I don't have a TV. I do not have a TV because it's, I'm going to put this very politely. I mean, there's so much programming. That's exactly what a television is, right? It tells a vision. It programs your mind. And whatever you feed your mind is what you believe. So I don't have a TV. I haven't had it for years. And rather than checking your phone straight away, do something different. And I think when you meditate, and especially because it's all about breathing, it's all about how we breathe. And that's very, very important. And when you meditate every morning, it really calms you down and it recenters you so that you can start your day right. And the other thing that I will say at night, what I do is the breathing techniques. And you can listen to 432 Hertz, which is on YouTube. And it's a frequency, so to speak, or you can also listen to Solfeggio frequencies, which also calms you down. But 432 Hertz really recenters you and takes away the stress of the day. And what you do is you breathe in for 4, right, all the way from your root chakra up to your crown chakra, because we never breathe properly. We always breathe up to around, at the mid of our chest. And so we do not oxygenate our body. So it's not like we're in optimum health. And when you do that, breathe in for 4, hold it for 4, out for 4, and hold it for 4.
Oh, box breathing.
And you do that. Yeah. And you do that for about 20 minutes. It really, really helps. When you've got that under control, you start with the 8. So 8, 8, 8, 8. And you reach that beautiful 0 point.
So basically 3 things that people can do today are they can breathe, they can not watch TV first thing in the morning, or maybe be very careful about what they do, and they can meditate.
Yep. Yeah, I think that's, yeah. Do something different every day. And the other thing what helped me a lot was make a bucket list. And I did that, and I stuck that to my fridge. And back in 2000, when my stepdad died, I always said to him, you know what, I'm going to run for cancer. And I mean, that stayed in my head. Right? I was running in my head until 2016, 2017, when I said, you know what, I'm going to start running for cancer. And I did. I did both 5K and 10K. And this was out in Florida, when I was living out in St. Pete in Florida. And it's powerful because we often procrastinate. And I think that is because we get so distracted by, everything that's to do with the media, with our phones, everything that's very electronic, because we live in such a technocratic society. And it was designed to be, it was designed that way. I always say it was designed that way because the more we get lost in our electronics, the more we deviate away from ourselves, from learning to get to know ourselves and to be friends with ourselves.
And it also takes us away from connecting with one another, because when people are looking at their phones, they're not talking, they're not interacting, and it separates us, and that's kind of sad. And
now that you mentioned that, I mean, when you walk into a restaurant, what's next to everyone on the table? Their phone. I mean, back in the 80s, that wasn't even possible.
No.
Don here. Remember me, guys?
Yes.
Listen, no, I love it. I love the exchange, and I knew you and Danny would get into it. And again, Rock and Robin, if you want to chime in on anything, please do. But
I do have something to add to what she was saying about those 3 things.
Go ahead, please.
The couple of things, because some of us have a hard time meditating. So since you have a music show, Don, one of the best things in the world sometimes is just to put on some headphones and some music and take a walk in nature, whether you're listening to music or maybe even just listen to the sounds of nature. There's something about nature. And you guys live in California, Don and Danny, and going in the beach water, walking in the sand barefoot, grounding yourself to Mother Earth does a lot of things to kind of bring you back to that good feeling. And one other thing that I'm really good at, because therapy is good. Hypnotherapy can help. Past life regression is really good. I've been doing a lot of that stuff, but I am a writer as well. And journaling, just speaking everything into existence. And, when you go to AA or NA, what's the first thing you do? You speak it into existence. Hi, my name is such and such. I'm an alcoholic. Now you're hearing it in stereo. So that's kind of the whole thing when you're dealing with childhood trauma. As I'm going through this journey right now, starting on another book dealing with childhood trauma and learning a lot more about my own, is the fact that we have to verbalize this. We have to understand that we can't keep it trapped below the surface. Our throat chakra needs to be opened up, and we need to speak it into existence, because the more we keep it under the rug, the more unhealthy we become. The physical manifestations, like what she was saying about the illnesses, they do surface a lot more. And for me, it was a horrible cough that I had for a number of years, being in the the surroundings of somebody who was very toxic to me, until I was able to get out of that space. That cough was there every day, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. So it was an actual physical manifestation of an emotional crisis I was going through being in this toxic, abusive relationship. So a lot of what you guys are talking about is spot on. There's so many different types of healing modalities out there. And for a lot of people who have the difficult time of meditating and quieting their mind, getting in nature, walking in the beach, walking in the forest, taking a drive, playing your favorite music, those are different ways that you can kind of substitute if you can't do the meditation. For me, I can't do meditation, but I have found so many other different ways of dealing with it, and nature is probably my biggest thing.
Right. Put the top down on that Mustang and go, girl. Right?
Yes, absolutely.
And Danny and I, my little sports car, and nothing fancy, but it's fun. We put the top down, and Danny always says, can we put the top down? And one of the other greatest things is just going to Malibu, which is 20 minutes from here to the beach. And as you just said, Robin, walk along the beach, feeling your bare feet in the sand. And yes, they call it grounding, I believe.
We walk here every morning.
Yeah, we walk, but to Starbucks. Brigitte, sorry, I do have my vices. That's the least of them, believe me. But listen, I love what all you ladies are saying. I really do. And I'm so glad that I followed my heart on doing this show, because really at the end of the day, music, of course, is what I promote on this show overall. And Robin just said it. Music is such a big part of all of our lives, whatever, if it's just listening to something in the background or a rock song to pick you up. Danny over here knows the words to every song the minute, 2 notes in. It's life. And again, Brigitte, one of the things that I loved was when I saw Soul, Soul, empowerment coach, man, because we all have a soul and we're all struggling to do the right things. I'm not a young man anymore, but I still feel young and I still feel that the best is yet to come. I feel so sorry for people that feel there's nothing better that lies ahead.
I mean, yeah, life is beautiful. And there's one other, I will say there's one other thing that I do to relax because, I have an insane job. Is that I go to the gym and that's how I, relieve a lot of the stress, and besides meditating, but that's what I enjoy doing as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta release the endorphins.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, exactly. Release the endorphins.
Well, Danny over here, amongst many things, Danny wears many hats, but she does teach yoga and Pilates. And I've never done either, but
I keep trying to get him to.
Yeah, well, keep working on me, baby. But my point is, whatever helps you get through. But so many people are struggling right now. And back to something you said earlier on, Brigitte, is let's face it, COVID made everybody reevaluate their lives. It made everybody think, what am I doing? Where am I going? Well, what am I happy? I mean, it really. If there's a silver lining in COVID, to me, it made people stop and think. And as a song I want to write, reevaluate their lives. Yes,
and it wasn't like that for everyone. I think a lot of people were caught up in that fear. As we know, fear is false evidence appearing real. Or as my guides like to say, it's either falling endlessly or a rising revolutionary, right? The choice is yours. I mean, fear is that beta blocker in the mind. It's the Darth Vader to your broken down Jedi, so to speak. And it's really because everything stems from the mind. What you think, you create, and that is what you manifest. And so at any point in time, as I'm sure you guys have heard of quantum physics, and I can't even remember what it was called. What the bleep do we know? It's all about changing your thinking to change your life. It's really about that shift in mindset. That's basically what it is. So life is actually really simple. It's we that make it very difficult because we get so absorbed in our drama and our experiences, thinking that it's so real. But basically, I always say to people, look at life like it's a game of playing Mario Brothers or Donkey Kong, and you're holding the console in your hand and you're trying to get through the level, this experience. and you falter. And it takes you a couple of times, but eventually you get there, but you don't give up. You don't. And then you get to the next, you've understood the experience, you've healed from it, and then you get to the next level of the game, so to speak. Because I see life as a cosmic game of evolution. It's like we're all in this old board game of was it Life? There is a very old board game. I think it's called Life. And,
I remember that.
Yeah, I played it.
I'm the elder statesman here, so I know.
And you roll the dice and you see where you go. But there is really no right or wrong in how you choose to experience life. I mean, but just experience it and just don't remain throttling yourself and staying put in a situation or an experience and where your life gets off the rails. It's really not worth it. I mean, life is really beautiful. You just need to move on and let go from these experiences. People will say to me, well, how can you forgive the person that abused you as a child? How can I not? What is the point? If I had kept everything with me, you could have put me in a straitjacket. And that's not what life is about. Life simply is all about a return to love. Nothing more, nothing less. What if we loved ourselves?
Very good.
What if we accepted one another as we are and we embraced one another as we are? The world would be a totally different place. But instead, we live so much in separation. We live so much in the ego that we've lost ourselves. And yet, when we're so lost in this stage in our life, it gives us an opportunity to find ourselves. My guides always say, and I work a lot with the Ascended Master Saint Germain, and he's been a real lifesaver. And he says, was it really Alice in Wonderland, or was the Wonderland in Alice all along? The Wonderland is in each and every one of us. But we live so much outside of ourselves, we forget that everything is within ourselves.
And you bring up a good point, too, about forgiveness. It's not really forgiving them for the sake of forgiving them. It's more for the sake of healing ourselves and allowing us to remove the anger, the hate, the frustration, anything that we feel towards somebody who has hurt us or offended us. And I tell people this all the time. Look, you don't have to go talk to that person and tell them you forgive them, because that might put you in harm's way being in their presence. But you do need to find a way, a good way to do it is write a letter to them and getting everything off your chest, tell them you forgive them, then tear it up or burn it so that it's gone to the ether of the universe. But you have to get that stuff out of your system, because the more you hold that in, the more sick you become. And I've seen it destroy so many people. Alcoholism is a huge one that I've seen. They just don't know how to do that. And, coming from my background with my parents and the abuse I suffered at their hands, and then having to be their caregivers as they've gotten older, it has not been an easy journey. But I have found some level of being able to forgive in order to be a human being and have compassion in the position that I'm in. As much as it's difficult to do, I have found a way to do it, because I've learned that it's not that I don't love them and I don't hate them. I'm just indifferent, and I'm able to be a human being that can be compassionate and do what needs to be done in their time of need, even though they were never there for me. And there's a really rough history there. So forgiveness is more for you than it is for them. And you don't have to have that conversation, especially if it's going to put you in harm's way. Just find another way to do that for you so that you can heal.
Yeah, totally agree with you.
Wow. I've had to forgive a lot of people. And
Thanks, Robin.
I have to say, Robin, that was very powerful. That when I forgive someone, it's not for them, it's for me, because it frees me to be the kind of person that then can move forward and be even more loving and compassionate. Because it's funny because, Brigitte, you're talking about how in our society we don't really feel things. but it's okay to be angry. But someone once told me that anger is basically a mixture of fear and sadness. So instead of everybody being mad, we ask each other, what is it how much of your anger is fear and how much is sadness, and what are you scared of and what are you sad about? And if we could have those kinds of conversations, I think we'd all be so much nicer to each other and to ourselves, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's about giving one another the space. In this day and age, and, like I said, in the 80s it was different, but people don't have the time for you. People, when they start a conversation, how are you? But is it really a genuine how are you? Or is it just like, how are you? Can I? Okay, it's different these days. And I've noticed that. And I will be very honest. I mean, I love my solitude, though.
Me too.
And especially, we live again in very transformational times. But that also has to do with the fact that it happens. It doesn't happen often, but Saturn is in Pisces, and many people from early this year, I think February, myself included, have felt very uncomfortable because a lot is shifting from within. And I know we had this with COVID. That was a first wave of awakening, but now it's like a second wave. And it's delving deep within. And it's like, what am I doing with my life? What do you want out of life? And people say, yeah, but I'm stuck. No, you're not stuck. At any point in time, you can change your life. You don't have to play by the rules. I mean, let's face it, the game is rigged. The earthly game is rigged. So why play by the rules of society?
We get to make our own rules, but it takes a lot of courage, doesn't it?
It does take a lot of courage. It does. But we're not here on this earth to just, to just work, pay a mortgage, have kids. I always call it having a house, the white picket fence, the garden. It's a Dutch saying, but I can't really translate it. But that's not what life is about, and paying our bills. But it's been designed that way, and a lot of people get bogged down, especially now because prices here in the UK have tripled and quadrupled.
Here too.
And it's insanity, and it plays on a lot of people's, mental well-being. But it's like you have to step outside of that box, which is sometimes very, very hard. But now is really a time. It's like, what do you want out of life? What is important to you? What makes you happy? It's not about what makes other people happy. What makes you happy?
Yes.
Such a simple question, but not an easy answer. I know that. And so many people are going through that right now. I mean, in some ways I am, and,
me too.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we've all been through stuff, and it's how you react to that and how you come through those challenges. But I love your approach. It's so fun to hear you ladies talk. So three very, very intelligent women, and just because really we are in a strange time, period, worldwide. And so many people are just going, what is the answer? What should I be doing right now? That's what my mother, who had dementia, used to say to me, DR, Donald Richie, she said, DR, what should I be doing right now? And I'd say, Mom, just relax. But now people are really saying that. So I just think that anything you can do, any of us can do to help people through these challenging times and realize the simplicity of life. As my dad said, take time, man. Just take time to see the river run. And, that's what it's all about. Family and friends, the simple things.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to give an example of what I'm going through right now.
Please.
And that is really about, so I work like a maniac. I've always worked like a maniac. And I realized something, and I don't work normal hours because I also work in the oil and gas industry, or standardization industry. And the hours have been insane. And it's like, I just woke up one day and I said, what am I doing with my life? I really want to focus more on the spiritual, because I'm also writing my second book, which is about my time in India at the Art of Living Center in Bangalore. And I thought to myself, this is not what makes me happy. And so I've now put a plan in place where I'm planning to move down to Spain and just, write my second book and work on helping others, because that is what I'm passionate about. The corporate is a means to an end. But if you're not happy with your job, it affects everything else around you. So you need to take back that power, because often in life, whatever we go through, we allow ourselves to be disempowered. And that's what happened to me very briefly, because I'm still learning. I'm still a work in progress like everyone else. And I took back my power and I thought, you know what? I'm going to start living my dream rather than keeping this in my head. So I've put a plan in motion, because that's the way that I work. And I have already manifested that, in the sense that when we manifest something, we say, I want to do this. I want to be there. But that's the wrong approach. You have to think, I am there. I'm already doing this. Because then you have the end goal in mind. You're already there. And then you take the steps to finalize, to get to that goal. Rather than saying, I want to do this in future. Well, then it remains in the future, because that's the energy that you vibe out. I always say with energy, what you vibe out is exactly what you reel back in.
I think Einstein basically proved that in quantum physics, that particles behave according to the expectation of the viewer. So, Einstein, he was no dummy. So if he said that, to me, that means, that's probably true.
I'm in. That's above my pay grade, but I love it. And again, it's so fascinating to hear the back and forth. Brigida, it's so good to hear your thing. Now, how can people get in touch with your writings and your book and promote anything you'd like right now, please?
Yeah, so my book is available on Amazon worldwide. And can I just say, I did not write it for me. I was supposed to write it, and they really pushed me. I worked many late nights on it, but it's really to help people awaken and to return to a far more authentic version of themselves, and to live a life that's far more fulfilling than what they may currently, what they may currently do. And they can reach me on powersoulhealing.com. I'm not too much on social media right now, but I am on Facebook on the Universal Light Warriors, and Instagram on the Universal Light Warriors as well.
Okay, cool.
Excellent. And so you've written a book. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Becoming Authentically Me. Is that also available via your website?
No, it's on my website, but it's available on Amazon worldwide.
Okay.
Yeah, cool. Well, and so both of your other females on this show have written books. Danny's got a book coming out.
Two, actually.
Two. and again, I promoted every show. Robin Cote, the producer of the show, is much more than a producer of this show and all the shows she does. But she has written a wonderful book called Soul Stirrings, which is about how our loved ones still stay connected. I lost my wife at 32 years to cancer. Danny lost her husband to cancer. And we all feel connected. And it's those little soul stirrings, Robin. I'll never forget the first one I had. I called Robin. I said, I think I just had a soul stirring. And it was just incredible. So I appreciate that type of creativity. I'm more of a music guy. And while we've been talking to the show, and I pulled out a CD of a song that I'm going to play that I wrote myself about this sort of thing. And I'm working on a book, but it's taken me a lot longer than you girls. You girls are finishing your books. But it's just a crazy kind of life out there for everybody. And it's how you live it, and it's so short, and I'm trying to still learn that myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So can I just say one thing?
Please.
And I yeah. So to anybody listening, never think that you are alone, because you're not. Never think that you're not loved, because I love you.
Yep.
And never give up. Honestly, never give up. My father always used to say, there's always light at the end of the tunnel, no matter how dark that tunnel may be. But we have to go through our experiences. You know, it's not, we've asked for these experiences because we want to learn from them, and we want to, it's all about an expansion of our own awareness. You know, when we overcome something, it's like, oh, you know, 6 months down the line, we look back and it's like, wow, I'm in such a different place now, and I feel so much better about myself than I did 6 months ago. And I think that's really, really important. But if you're suffering, please do not suffer in silence, and speak to someone. You know, reach out to someone. It's really, really important.
Thank you so much for saying that. I think a lot of people have struggled a lot, and it's so important to reach out. There are so many people out there who are struggling, but also so many people who are willing to help. And there's love all around if we're only able to see it and receive it.
Yeah, very true. And one other thing that Danny initiated this year is during the 40 days of Lent, you got a book about letting go, basically.
Yes, we didn't want to give up anything, but we're willing to let go of things. So every day we have a reading of something we let go, whether it's struggle, anxiety, shame, guilt, resentment, and it's been really very uplifting.
Yeah, and today was stress and
struggle.
I thought today was stress.
Yesterday was stress. Today is struggle.
Oh, okay, so I got it. But it's great
We're
because
up to go both.
You know, in between her coming and going and us doing things. Oh, I got to do the reading, and they're simple readings, nothing new, but it just brings it all back to perspective, puts it right in front of you. That really, as you say, it really shouldn't be that difficult, but we make it difficult.
Yes, we do. We do.
Yeah. I just don't even know. I mean, I think about the people that really, really, really super struggle. And I mean, you just have to read the news every day to know that throughout the world and all the chaos and just the incredible atrocities going on everywhere. But basically, human beings are good people, and we're on this good earth for who knows how long, any of us.
And there's always an opportunity to be of service and to help somebody else. There's always, where there's a human being, there's an opportunity for kindness.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think so too.
And there is, you know, human, when you divide the word, you means light, and then man means, well, man is man. So I always say we're human, we're light men.
Yeah.
Because that's what we are. We are light encapsulated in a human body.
Mm-hmm.
Energy.
Yeah. So you're writing a second book, Brigitte?
Yes, I'm writing a second book. I'm pretty far. It's about my time in India. I was there in 2009 in the Art of Living Center, where I did 2 courses, the basic course and the advanced course. The advanced course was a silence course, and it was an ashram, and I really loved it out there, you know, because I'm part Indian. But it was amazing to me. I really learned to do the breathing techniques there, and that's why I say it's so powerful. And I channel the Indian deities like Krishna, Shiva, Ganesh, but it's also infused with channelings from the Ascended Master. I like him, Dwight Cool. He talks a lot about love, and it's really about, well, if you can't love yourself, how can you heal yourself? And if you cannot heal yourself, how can you ever love yourself? And I think that's really, really important. But it's infused with exercises as well. And so hopefully that will be out later this year.
Oh, fantastic.
Awesome.
And Danny, you've spent time in India.
Yeah, I've been to India 4 times. I went to the ashram of Sri Satya Sai Baba 4 times, and I got a lot of just so much out of it. It's such a spiritually rich country. Just the vibe there is just so intense. I mean, it's very intense, sort of sense-wise. There's a lot going on, but yeah, a beautiful place. And so, what you're saying is really resonating. I can really relate.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
Yeah.
I love Bollywood movies, by the way.
Me too.
Oh, man. Well, we did Palace on Wheels, the train ride through Rajasthan. That was my experience in India, and it was fascinating because, of course, they kind of kept you away from the populace. You'd get off the train and people would be begging every stop. And, wrote a song about it called The Train. Here we are on this train, but you'd stop at all these places just, full of poverty. And it was an eye-opener, but beautiful country with beautiful people, and that's for sure. Stick with me because I'm going to play this song, darn it, because we've been talking about life. This is a crazy kind of life, and then we'll come back to you, Brigitte, and close things up. Crazy kind of life.
Restless night, opening doors to our fears, secrets to share, and a lonely dream. You learn how to smile through the tears. Just look through the eyes of a stranger.
Yeah, what are you going to do? That's my thoughts on life. It's a crazy kind of life. We all go through things that confuse us. It's but the power to survive and get through it. And I think the message, Brigitte, that you've brought tonight, Danny, Rockin' Robin Cote, I've really, really enjoyed hearing the three of you wonderfully talented ladies share your thoughts.
Thank you, DC, for this opportunity for us to discuss.
Anybody else still there?
Yeah, no, thank you. I love that song, by the way.
Oh, thank you. And, the power to survive and the peace for which we strive, that's really, for me, that's what it's all about.
Actually, what are you going to do is my new motto.
Yeah, right. You get through it. But Brigitte Visser, thank you so much for being on the show tonight. I'm so glad that Ken was persistent in following through. It was a nice left turn for me, very, very different from my normal routine. But hey, as you say, no fear. Let's go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Drop the fear and you'll see that everything will change.
Very, very nice. Brigitte, any other final words of wisdom you'd like to say before we sign off?
The only thing that I will say is, live your life. Don't allow yourself to be lived. Take back your power. And, the time to change is now. You're never too old to change. I know that's very cliche, but it is true. Because we are eternal anyway. Age is just a number. I don't believe in that. So, but yeah, live your life. Honestly, live your life and do the things that make you happy and do the things that you set out, to do rather than keeping them in your mind. Build towards that future because you create in the present moment. You create better tomorrows by creating in the present moment.
Absolutely perfect.
Wonderful. Very wise.
Yeah.
Brigitte Visser, thank you again so much.
Thank you.
Danny Forrest, D4.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you've been great. And thanks to Ken Franklin for setting that up. He really worked hard on that. Thank you, Rockin' Robin Cote, my beautiful producer.
Love you,
were
Robin.
Phenomenal. You're so insightful and so much to add to the show. And thanks to the Star Worldwide Networks, Dave, the Mayor Pratt, who is responsible for me doing this show, to be honest with you. Thanks to our troops. Respect them, past, present, and future. Respect your police officers. John Lennon said it best. All we need is love. We love you all. Danny, thanks so much. It's enjoy your Easter again, as you say, however you celebrate Passover, Easter, whatever you do. Enjoy life. Take time. You said it, Brigitte. Take time. Enjoy life. That was my dad's motto, too. It's short. Live your life.
And all you need is love.
All you need is love. Good night, everybody. Take care. Don Cromwell
Bye.
Live.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Don Cromwell Live. Producer, songwriter, musician, and former Air Supply and Eddie Money bassist, Don Cromwell. Every week, Don Cromwell Live connects the artist with you, the fan. Hear Don Cromwell Live as it happens Wednesday night, 9 p.m. Eastern. Or on demand, 24/7 on StarWorldWideNetworks.com. And follow Don at Facebook.com/Don Cromwell. And Twitter at Don Cromwell Live. Don Cromwell Live from StarWorldWideNetworks.com.